So here's how you know Kash Patel used ChatKGB to write the supposed text messages between Tyler Robinson and his roommate. The most glaring example is, of course, the way he's like, the FBI is 4 stages ahead of me. They're already 4 steps ahead of me. They texted my dad the pictures of the rifle I'm using. You know, all this stuff. That Kash Patel, he's just so clever and smart. All that stuff in the middle is probably the most glaring example, but every line is evidence that Kash Patel used ChatKGB to write this. There's the hallucination, which maybe is from Chat KGB. There's just the obsession with his grandfather's gun. Like his grandfather's gun is the most important thing in the entire exchange. Then there's all the focus on mentioning every aspect of every piece of evidence they have, and how, you remember the other day when I was etching words into those bullets, and I'm just making a giant meme. This is their attempt to distract from him being a groiper. They're like, I'm just making a giant meme. I can't wait to hear some talking head on Fox say, ooh woo. You know, no, that's their side story. That's their cover story. That it's just a meme or trying to be like Luigi or something. It's their cover story to distract from him being an obvious groiper. The fact that all of those phrases are groiper phrases. I even heard NPR doing this. NPR had an expert journalist on saying, well, these are just gamer phrases. These aren't gamer phrases, they're groiper phrases. He's like, some people are saying that just because these phrases are all used by the groiper community, that it means he's a groiper. But actually, it reflects that he's a gamer, where people don't use these phrases in the gaming community at large. It's groipers using these phrases in games like Roblox, where they do their predator stuff. They recruit and prey on kids. And this guy was obviously preyed upon at a young age, 15 or something, 13 even. He was doing groiper memes. And then Adam Mockler tries to distract from that by saying, well, he was doing this before groiper even became a term. Well, yeah, but he was still part of the early movement, which is probably why he was so dedicated. It's definitely why his friends in the real text messages, there's other text messages that Inside Edition was reporting on, that are believable. The real text messages have his friends responding to him, oh, you did that? Oh, dog, you did that. Don't go to McDonald's. And Inside Edition had the reporter standing in front of McDonald's to suggest, McDonald's, the Luigi Tyler Robinson connection. That's what they framed it. And then they presented the rest of the video as if he's only imitating Luigi, as if Luigi's now responsible for Tyler Robinson. No, Nick Fuentes and Trump and Putin are responsible for Tyler Robinson, just like Charlie Kirk and Trump and Putin were responsible for the other side of it. It's all a terrorist network. These are two different branches of it. The Nick Fuentes anti-Semitic Klan branch, neo-Nazi branch of the Trump-Putin terrorist network, and the Zionist, not Zionist, Charlie Kirk branch of the Putin-Trump Klan network. But back to the supposed text messages. The stuff about the FBI being so far ahead is just hilarious. It's like, how could anybody have ever believed this? The stuff about Candace Owens calling into question but saying it was edited or redacted. I mean, Candace Owens is kind of on the right track, but she's on the right track in order to steal people on the right track onto a wrong track. And in this case, she's giving credit to it being actual messages by suggesting that they were just edited in a weird way. And that's crazy too. They're not actual messages. People on the internet pointed out that it's not how people talk. It's not how anyone talks or has talked for a very long time. One winning comment was saying, I used to call my love, I used to call my girlfriend my love in my 20s too. But I'm a Victorian era ghost. I'm from Victorian England, and I'm a ghost. And so it's like, nobody says that. But not only that, the my loves were just sprinkled in to suggest that they're in love, that there's a relationship. And even that, as minimal as it was enough that you can see how people will have nothing but sympathy for someone defending his lover, defending his love. People will make a Hallmark movie about it, celebrating them because of the whole defending love against, an evil person who keeps threatening to kill all the people, that the type that your lover belongs to. It's crazy how much even the worst fanfic in the world, shipping them together, as Kash Patel had ChatKGB concoct, still has the potential to trigger people's, even with the only romantic things about it, we're saying I'm most concerned about you and saying my love a few times, the only romantic things, that's still enough just to give people's hearts the ability to fill in the blanks with the whole romance Bonnie and Clyde kind of story that makes them all, you know, cult heroes, folk heroes. Anyway, point being, they don't realize how bad that's going to backfire on them, even the fact that they completely made it up. But the my love stuff is not believable. It doesn't suggest an actual relationship or actual modern people. And more than that, to me, it suggests that somehow Kash Patel knew he was going to get caught for writing this stuff. He knew somehow. He just, either it was obvious to him too, or he just had the subconscious premonition, they're going to catch me and out me for being the one who wrote this stuff. So if I put too much in here, like imagining, fantasizing and LARPing about what I would say to my trans lover, it's going to reflect on me ultimately. So it's just a couple of my loves. Let's keep it simple. Let's not reveal too much of my secret fantasy desire to have a trans lover. It's just Kash Patel personality. I don't know who's obsessed with the gun, the grandfather's gun, whether that's a Kash Patel thing or it's a Chat KGB hallucination. But that's the most significant factor. He's in love with the gun, whatever, a lot more than he is with his supposed trans lover. And all of it is so silly and ridiculous, and I think everybody's calling it out. I really appreciate Ross Childs, the guy who does such a great impression of Vladimir Futon. But anybody who's calling it out, I really appreciate that. I think maybe Trey Crowder's calling out, but anyway, people are starting to call it out and point out how ridiculous this is. Not just the Candace Owens half call it out to distract from who really did it, or to suggest that it's real, but they just edited it a certain way. Complete fabrication by, what's his name, Kash Patel and Chat KGB. Like, let's be real. Our FBI is now the Team KGB. Like, they're just wannabes, and they're terrible at it, and it's pathetic. And in the meantime, some guy who looks pretty MAGA, they haven't come out and said he's trans yet, but some guy who looks pretty white, male MAGA, who they're saying has mental health issues and used to be in the military, drove his car into the Pittsburgh FBI building and threw an American flag over the wall. And they haven't called him trans yet, probably only because they're spending all their effort at making up trans people on the Tyler Robinson case. But we need to call this stuff out. We need to set a new threshold. They're trying to make the threshold where you either worship Charlie Kirk, you either replace Jesus with Charlie Kirk in your life and worship Charlie Kirk, and you must worship Charlie Kirk in order to be allowed to work. They're trying to make that threshold. Let's make a different threshold. If you repeat these lies about anybody being trans in this situation, if you repeat Trump's anti-trans lies to promote Trump and Putin's anti-trans, anti-American agenda, then unless you vigorously and aggressively and quickly apologize for that and retract it and try to do all the work to unshift the attention away from the Groypers and from Trump and the MAGA on MAGA crime, Mormonic extremism, Mormonic terrorism, Mormon extremism, unless you do all the work to shift the focus back where it belongs on Mormonism, I'm kind of being tongue-in-cheek there, although the Church of Judas replaces all patriarchy, Christianity, war, and Trumpism, so check that out, hashtag Church of Judas. But put the real blame on Tyler Robinson and his Groyper terrorist cell, Nick Fuentes, Putin, and Trump and Putin, and Netanyahu. Like, put the blame where it belongs, because they all worked together and had a plan ready to go for when this happened, whether they orchestrated it so directly or not, or just let Nick Fuentes orchestrate it. Point being, he's not saying all this stuff trying to cover himself legally because he's not legally responsible. But again, it's still Putin and Trump activating one branch of their terrorist network against another branch of their terrorist network in order to blame us for it. Attacking yourself to blame your victims is very October 7th. It's very September, BB's 9/11. It's very, how do you put it? It's very Butler. It's very the Misser shooting teleprompters and firemen. It's very, very Putin attacking himself and calling it Chechnyan rebels. It's very Trump Putinier. Let's just put it that way. And we've got to stop letting them get away with this same play over and over again. Like, if this was a football game, we would have fired the coach that refuses to defend against this play. Thank you. Check out the hashtag Pillow Revolution and Peace Pipe Party and grab them by the posse. We can do it from bed. We can do it completely non-violently. We can do it on our phones. But we must replace and end these fascists, Trump, Putin, and Netanyahu, and all their little minions, and see through their lies. Anytime they're demonizing a trans person, it's one of these lying fascist, Nazi, pedophile Trump-Putineers. They're terrorists. They're traitors. They orchestrated the attack the same day that Putin attacked actual Poland and Trump attacked the largest Polish American city, Chicago. Like, and they both had planned those attacks for weeks. We know Trump had planned his attacks on Chicago for weeks because he was talking about them. Zelensky told us about how Putin's planning his attack on Poland for weeks. And then they did the Charlie Kirk attack that afternoon. Netanyahu and Putin and Trump tweeted about it in the exact same minute, a minute too early, thanks to Sammy Obeid for that information, and nobody else reporting on it. Candace Owens being the one to spearhead, and now even Steve Bannon saying, that the texts seem suspicious, but Candace Owens spearheading to blame Israel, but blaming Israel without blaming Trump is obviously a distraction. Blaming Netanyahu without blaming Putin and Trump as well is a distraction from the fact that Putin and Trump and Netanyahu do all this stuff together. They're in lockstep, so we need to get to step in to stop them. Thank you. Welcome to the Pillar Revolution, Church of Judas, and the Peace Pipe Party. Let's get President Jasmine Crockett and Vice President AOC. Let me know if you have any other ideas and comments. But yeah, this was supposed to be just focused on those letters and how the letters all proved that Kash Patel wrote it with the KGB, with the chat KGB. And I think I'm missing some other glaring examples too that I just, there's too much to say because again, it's every single line. So remind me in comments. Thanks. See you next time.